This week on the Pro Wrestling Podcast, we get Red-Ass JR breaking some new information on the exploding barbed wire debacle. Eric Bischoff gets surprised live on air with a Hall of Fame announcement. Jim Cornette gets into it with Miro, Penelope Ford, and Kip Sabien. And that little snot-nosed brat, -1. I'm your host, Seth Grimes, and this is the Pro Wrestling Podcast. It's the Good Brothers, Gallows and Anderson, hanging out, talking a little shop on their podcast, Talking Shop. Dropped this past Sunday, and today, if you're listening to this on the day that this drops. But in this episode, the Good Brothers were talking about what it was like to remember your lines, comparing their trip to the WWE to other promotions that they've worked in, and how they spent so much of their time just fucking reading a piece of paper and focusing on that and not focusing on doing all the other shit that they should be doing, like being tough guys and beating up John Cena or beating up fucking John Moxley. Check this out.
2 minutes or whatever. I wasn't even the guy who got the match. I was the cop who held the gold medal. Now, I've been watching this shit my whole life. I'm so nervous, you can see it back, that I'm physically shaking, worried about fucking up. Think about these guys thinking like that, and they have 5 pages of lines to remember. There's no fucking chance.
Or having
you have to have some training and experience to be given that kind of responsibility.
And here's another way to look at it. How about this? You know, you and I were on WWE television for 4 years.
Yep.
We have a lot of experience and a lot of, together we were 4 years, but you got some other ones.
We've been doing big time wrestling for a long time.
But big time wrestling for a long time. But you and I trying to remember, even
we hate that.
Even in the veteran status we were in when we went to WWE, we were having issues with remembering our lines.
And then coming off natural.
We remembered them all.
Yeah.
We never stumbled on live television. We never fumbled. We never stuttered.
No, we were fine, but there were times when we did not feel like our natural selves in a huge way.
We never felt like our natural selves. But we were always going over our fucking lines.
Yeah, it's just
like so we were having issues with remembering. If you remember the second thing we ever did in WWE, which was off the air, and I forgot my line completely, looked at you and said, "What's my line?"
Yes.
That was off the air, dark. And this, I've been in front of some big fucking crowds.
This is a Good Brother story. We're in the ring one time, and this is, I'm 25, so I've still got the nerves and everything. I'm out there with Punk and Serena, I think, and Triple H.
You were 25. What were you, Festus?
No, Luke now.
Luke Gallows?
Yeah.
At 25 in the strong style?
And the straight edge thing, yeah.
The straight edge society?
Yep.
That's what a run.
I've been around a long damn time.
That Marco stunt was 20. I've been doing this a long time. But no wonder you're so fucked up. You got on TV so early.
Well, yeah, I debuted the first time I was 22. But so I just...
Oh my God, you look just like your son when you said that.
22. But I remember being there, and you think these guys don't fuck anything up ever. And we're standing in the ring, and Punk and Hunter are promoing back and forth because our green asses aren't getting to say anything, and we shouldn't be able to. And they do something, and Punk gets a pop, and Hunter says something and gets a pop, and then Hunter drops the microphone down to his pecs and goes, "What's my line?" That's soft. And Punk goes, burr, 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 burr. And he goes, "And then blah, 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 blah." And I went, oh, even those guys, it's hard to remember all those fucking lines.
And more power to Punk, giving it to him.
The line and fed it right to the brother.
Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy.
How about that?
And how many times has he cut scripted promos on television,
That's funny because like literally, I remember I would always call my dad when I'd land on Tuesdays going home, and I'd be like,
"Tell him how the fuck it was."
WWE's this, that, fucking sucks. The hardest thing that I'm trying to figure out is fucking these memorizing these stupid fucking lines, man. He's like, "What you have to start studying lines?" Like, well, I can't be an actor.
How do I do that?
I can't study. I'm not
an
lines.
actor. I'm a wrestler. So you've said this before on Talking Shop, but it's always one of my favorite. Your dad is a Talking Shop good brotherly legend, just because of all the times we've had with him. But remember when he called you up and he said, "Son, Is WWE like New Japan? Compare it for me. Do you remember your answer?
Of course I remember my answer. I go, Dad, instead of, people always say, listen, dude, it's apples and oranges. In between, how do you compare New Japan and WWE? And I said, Dad, you got apples and oranges, right? He goes, oh, it's different. I go, no. This is what it is. It's apples and cocks. And he goes, oh, what? And I said, yeah.
I thought he said apples and shit. Apples and cocks.
Oh, apples and cocks. Yeah. And he goes, oh, God, what? And I said, no, that's how different it is. You got an apple in one hand and a cock in the other. And that's the kind of difference it is.
That's got to be so fucking hard. Like, WWE is now a actual TV show where you have lines and shit, just like any other TV show. But they're not hiring actors. They're trying to hire athletes and then try to teach them how to be actors at the same time. If you're going to demand that people read your fucking lines that you wrote in a script that you hired Hollywood actors or Hollywood writers to come and write for you, then hire fucking actors. Hire muscly actors. Hire stuntman actors that can read lines. Pro wrestling is... Promos are not supposed to be fucking scripted. And I know it's WWE, and I know they're the biggest company, and I know in a lot of people's minds they write the rules. And who's to say that wrestling is not supposed to be scripted when the biggest company in the world scripts their lines? There's a reason why they do that. But that's not how wrestling should be. Wrestling is from the heart. Wrestling is emotions. When you became a fan of pro wrestling, you didn't become a fan of the words that the writers wrote coming out of some guy's mouth. None of you became fans listening to a fucking Miz dialogue. This is pro wrestling where guys shoot from the hip. You get backstage with the promoter, the booker, the fucking the producer, the agent, whoever the fuck you want, and they say, we want you to say this, we want you to say this, and we want you to say this. Go out there and have fun. This is what we're trying to get over. As long as that's somewhere in there and it's kind of about that, then that's all we're really looking for. And that's all it needs to be. A good wrestler will take it from there. A good wrestler will be able to get themselves over and get the story over and the details all at the same time, and probably even their opponent over at the same time without having to read it off of a piece of paper and fucking memorize it. There is no reason that we have this locker room full of talented wrestlers, talented wrestlers walking around backstage of WWE reading a fucking piece of paper. And you hear it over and over again. What do you see when you go backstage at WWE? You see guys wandering up and down the halls reading their goddamn lines. That's it. Why is that the biggest fucking thing on a wrestling show? Has anybody ever botched a promo so bad in the history of wrestling that you needed to say, all right, we're scripting it from now on? God damn it. Every word's approved by me. Why? What happened that did that? Your greatest talkers in the history of life learn how to talk by just talking. CM Punk, put him right at the top of that list. Fuck you. Hulk Hogan, great talker. Roddy Piper, great talker. Ric Flair, great talker. The Rock, Stone Cold Steve Austin. The list can go on and on and on. I don't need to rattle off every great talker in the business. You know them. But what do they all have in common? They didn't read goddamn lines. They didn't come into this and learn how to read lines. You think Stone Cold Steve Austin ever in the history of his life could have gotten anywhere near where he is at right now? If what he achieved in the business, the level of star power, if he had to go out there and read some bullshit that some writer wrote for him, he wouldn't be able to do it. He would not be able to function in that environment. All of these guys, Ric Flair, all of them, Hulk Hogan, Macho Man Randy Savage, Roddy Piper, these guys can cut a promo in their sleep. And it's just off the hip. What do you want me to say? Okay, I'll throw that in there. And I'm going to go out there and I'm going to get myself over. I'm going to get my opponent over. I'm going to get this upcoming match over and make you die to want to see this match. They're fucking masters at it. And it didn't come from a writer. It didn't come from a piece of paper. And I think the best promos in wrestling are off the cuff. Now, some people are terrible promos. There are really bad promos in professional wrestling, and that's good too. That's fine. First of all, you need to know who sucks and who's good. It establishes a hierarchy. This guy's the top of our card because he can talk people into the building. This guy needs a manager and needs to shut the fuck up and stand there and look like a muscle dummy because he can't say 3 words. You think handing him a script and telling him to go backstage and learn how to be an actor in fucking a half hour is gonna turn him into the next biggest star? No, it's not. It's not. And chances are he's going to get over more by saying stupid shit that's from the heart than saying not so stupid shit that came from a piece of paper he was handed an hour before he had to go out there. You may have a different way of looking at it. Look, I'm not always just trying to come out here and say that I'm just right. You might be right. Somebody else might be right. This is just my opinion. But in my opinion, pro wrestling is at its best when the guys are trusted to be pro wrestlers, and just go out there and fucking do their thing. As a booker, a promoter, as a producer, an agent, all you got to do is tell them what you need to happen in the match to push your storyline forward, to go where you need to go as a company, as a brand, right? What do I want to hint at? What do I want to forecast? What do I want to tease? What do I want to pound into their heads? What do I really want to sell to these people? That's all you need to know. You can get that information 5 minutes before you go out of the curtain. And the best will be able to do it on their feet. Even not. A lot of guys will maybe take the information and they'll think of a promo in their head, but they're putting it into their own words. Even if they're memorizing their own shit, it's their own shit. So at the end of the day, to make a long rant short, being scripted in professional wrestling, I think, is one of the things that is taking professional wrestling out of professional wrestling. It's why we're getting further and further away from the product we all fell in love with, because it's turning into, it's trying to be Saturday Night Live with a wrestling ring, and that's just not how it works. You can check out the Good Brothers Talking Shop every single Sunday, like today. Just listen to mine first, finish listening to mine, then go listen to theirs. And that's the best order of doing things. We had the boys from Keeping It 100 talking about the very lackluster ratings for AEW this week, despite coming off of a huge pay-per-view, one of their biggest, if not their biggest pay-per-view of all time. So what the fuck happened? Listen to this clip.
So yeah, did you, bro? They did a very bad. That number on Wednesday this week was shocking.
Yeah.
For me,
coming out of a
because they were coming off.
Yep.
Because here's the weird thing. Okay, and I think this maybe tells you this is a fascinating study on the behavior of the wrestling fans today, right? So traditionally in professional wrestling, the night after a pay-per-view is like. It's like never less from the week before. Like there's always interest, right?
Yeah, so you want to see what happened at the pay-per-view.
Right. Okay. So they literally on the Wednesday before the pay-per-view had this big audience for Shaq. Okay. So these people that tuned in, they had 1.3 million people for that first segment, right?
Right.
Then they have the pay-per-view. Okay. But the pay-per-view gets a lot of negative criticism, bro. So what happens is, like, you would think their fans okay, let's about pay-per-view. There's still a lot of talk about the payper-view, the Exploding. So I thought there would be a lot of interest in this week's show. I thought the numbers would be because there's a lot of, even like Eric Bischoff says, controversy creates cash, right? You would think controversy, how they go, and they do it, bro, and the numbers dropped significantly.
Yeah.
And I think here's my theory, bro. Because this fan base these days is kind of like a lot of millennials and Generation Zers. Are they literally like that petty that they like got mad that that AEW kind of like screwed them on that exploding thing and like in like a petty way? So I'm not going to watch the show this week.
You pay $60 for explosion in the main event. You want your $60 explosion in the main event. I was reading the Observer.
But that's what I'm saying. Do you think the fans, instead of just okay, this is part of the show, that they like actually made a statement? Like, yeah, I'm not going to watch it. I'm pissed.
Not as much.
Yeah.
I think people were pissed, but I don't think it was a statement. I also think that the pay-per-view did their best number, according to the Observer, and Dave broke down all the numbers.
Yeah, they did an incredible number.
Well, they charged $60.
But here's a problem. Here's a problem. You did an incredible number, and you pissed off a lot of people too, and that's not good.
Maybe that, yeah.
I think what happened also was you got to remember now. A lot of people don't have time and don't want to watch the show. They listen to our reviews. They go on YouTube. They saw the clip of how it didn't explode. They read how it wasn't a good pay-per-view. They're like, well, what am I really going to watch the show for? There's nothing really interesting happening. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Right.
Maybe.
I told you this last week. I told you. This is going to hurt AEW more than anybody is even aware right now. They lost those viewers because people heard that it was a shit show, or they paid $50 for a pay-per-view and watched it firsthand, found out that it was a shit show. What are you going to do? You're going to rush to tune in to watch a show that was just made internet headlines for botching the fuck out of an explosion, and then double down on it and tried to convince you that it was all part of the plan. To the point where I half-heartedly think that it was part of the plan, which is even stupider because Tony Khan keeps saying, well, we couldn't actually blow people up, so we had to come up with a reason why we couldn't blow people up, and that's why we had the Kenny Omega storyline that he built the fucking bombs. I don't know if that was a cover. I still assume it was a cover for a botch, but in that case, just come out and say, yo, we had this spectacular explosion planned. If it was me, even if I did purposely blow up the ring like a piece of shit, like they did, like, we can't really blow people up, so we're going to pretend that it was a shitty build job, right? Kenny Omega just fucked up the bombs. Didn't work. I would even, if I did that on purpose and all the internet backlash, I'd just come out and blame a fake pyro guy. I'd be like, yeah, we hired a pyro company and they fucked it up and we're never going to use them again and we will do better next time. I'd blame it on them. Even if that wasn't the plan. Because it was shitty. And this is why you're losing viewers. Make no mistake. They talk about it here in this in this clip here. That traditionally in professional wrestling, ratings after a pay-per-view are really high because people are turning in to see what's next. They want to see the fallout and they want to see the follow-up. Well, nobody tuned in to see that. They came off one of their highest buy rates of pay-per-views ever, if not their highest pay-per-view buy rate ever. And then their ratings go down. Why did the ratings go down? Was it just an off week? No, it's because they fucked up their pay-per-view. And mark my words, their next pay-per-view is also probably going to be the lowest buy rate of all time. Because they can't deliver on... They've proven now that in their pay-per-views, they're not going to deliver you what they promised. Or they've taken that faith away, that trust in them, that knowing that they're going to do a good job, that they're going to deliver on what they're promising. We don't know that anymore. I can't look you in the eye and say that if they plan to do some kind of match... They could plan a fucking fire match, like an Inferno match, and I wouldn't trust that they'd be able to even get the fucking flame started. That's a problem. That's a problem. I said it last week. Shit happens, and that's fine. WWE did a pay-per-view with the lights out. That's fine. They also had a whole big, long run of building up trust and building up faith in their audience to where when shit happens, because shit will happen, it's okay. You've got our good faith. We trust in you that you are not a fuck up, that shit just happens. When AEW is such a new company and they have fuck ups like this, they're going to lose that trust. And they are more dangerously close to becoming a TNA because of this. Because once you lose those viewers because of that, you're going to have a hell of a time getting those back, if ever. And that second million that you're trying to get, you're not going to get them when they hear about shit like this. So, you wonder why the ratings went down. The ratings went down because you fucked up on the pay-per-view. And you're going to eat that for a little while still. That's going to be fresh until it's not fresh anymore. People will remember that. And it's going to take a while before AEW can build up enough goodwill to prove that they can be trusted when they make a promise that they're going to deliver on it. And that's the situation that they're in right now. Do I have faith that they can build it back up? Yes. But they cannot afford many. Just the very next night on Dynamite, they had the basketball game audio cutting in. They had like a couple other little tiny snafus. Their production is abysmal at this point. When you're live, you're live. Shit happens when you're live. When you're new, you're new. And you're just not as polished and clean as a WWE. And it sucks that people will compare you to WWE because WWE's been around for decades and decades and decades. Half a century more. And they have produced flawlessly to the point where their live productions are so slick they look post-produced. AEW's a long way from that, and it's only going to take so many snafus before they lose their audience completely. I'm telling you. You can hate me, you can comment about it, you can think what you want to think about it, feel how you want to feel about it. Again, I love AEW. I'm a big fan. I do watch every week, and I don't watch WWE, so I'm not a WWE fanboy. If anything, I'm an AEW fanboy, but I'm going to call it like I see it, and this is just not a good sign, and they gotta climb their way back up from it, and that's what's going on with the ratings, folks. You can check out the boys at Keeping It 100. They got the podcast, they got the YouTube videos, they're all over the place. Conan, Disco, a couple other guys, I have no idea who they are. Always worth a listen. Go support their shit, motherfucker. Got a big dose of crotchety old red ass JR on Grilling JR this week. This was Ask JR Anything, and he was asked several questions by fans, and every time that he was asked a question, JR would just get bitchy about it. Assuming that whoever's asking the question just had the worst of intentions and was asking it sarcastically or digging for dirt or trying to start some shit. JR was defensive and crotchety and red-assed as a motherfucker. You ever hear the term red-ass JR? This is the podcast to go back and listen to. Here's a clip of JR being red-assed when he was asked about his current relationship with Vince McMahon. Check this out.
He always returns my text messages. And he sent me a text message the other day, and we're just chatting. So I don't know, man. Everybody reads something into something, Conrad. Well, there's got to be some damn dirt. God damn it, we need dirt. Son of a bitch. Where's the dirt? I don't want to know what you have for breakfast. Who gives a shit, JR? Nobody gives a shit. I want fucking dirt. If you don't give me dirt, then I'm not going to listen to your goddamn show anymore or your Grilling JR podcast. That's what we've got to have. We need it. We want it. We need more the derisiveness, and we need more goddamn combative nature in our world that the world doesn't give us. So it's fine.
I love Red Ass JR. This is my favorite version of JR. He's a grumpy ass old man. He is grumpier than shit balls, and he knows it. He knows that he is, and it makes for a great show. Conrad just kind of laughs and, keeps it going and everything. But man, JR can just go off on a tangent, and he must get a lot of hate on Twitter because he assumes the worst in every question he's asked, and he's always doing that thing. Well, now you're gonna say JR said this, and that's the worst JR impression ever. But you get what I'm saying, If you've ever listened to him, you get it. Besides all of that shit, we also got this clip. Finally got the answers that I've been kind of wanting to hear. The more explanation anyway. We've shed some more light on the explosion debacle from AEW's Revolution pay-per-view and the exploding barbed wire death match. I've covered it extensively here. JR shed some new light on that whole situation. Check out this clip.
I thought the pay-per-view, exclude the last 30 seconds where the big explosion was supposed to go, and it bombed. It was a malfunction of the pyro. And the irony of that is that they had, because of all the fire marshal, the safety precautions and so forth, they had run through that several times.
Right.
The explosions. And they worked great. Boom, big, great. Just what we needed. And then when it came showtime, you never know when you're doing live television. McMahon always said nothing could go wrong when you're doing live TV. Well, there's an exception or two. But nonetheless, I think I really love the pay-per-view itself. If you can exclude from your mind as a viewer, if you can get off that hill of just talking about one issue, and that was the malfunctioning pyro, then I think most people are going to say it was a pretty damn good show.
Well, you heard it from JR. I don't consider JR a liar, at all. So if he says they tested it multiple times and it looked exactly the way that we would want it to look, he said it looked explosive and the whole thing, and it looked like we would want it to look. Were almost his exact words you heard there. So I'm assuming then it just, it was a botch. It was a botch. I trust JR. So now we know it was a botch. We know it wasn't a plan from Tony Khan, as he said in the clip from last week that I played on here. Tony Khan's trying to tell everybody, oh no, we planned it that way the whole way along. We can't actually blow people up. So we created this storyline where Kenny Omega built the shit and it was just a botch. I had my doubts, but JR really just confirmed it. It was a botch. The shit, and we all knew that, but to hear it from JR that it went off without a hitch, it was tested multiple times. That's good to hear. That makes me happy. That makes me have a little bit more faith in AEW that they had something spectacular set up, something that looked the part. All it had to be was a pyro show. I don't want to get into it again. You can go check it out last week. But according to JR, it looked great. It was tested multiple times. They were ready to go. And then when the bright lights were on and the camera was rolling, fucking nothing. Oh well. Is what it is. It happened. I think everybody's kind of moving past it now. The internet moves fast. I know I had said that I thought it would weigh AEW down, and like I said earlier, the ratings, and as we'll get to later here on the podcast, the ratings did take a dip. The ratings were down after Revolution, but they were up from that with this women's main event show that they just had, and I think they did a lot in that match. Again, I won't get too much into it here. We don't talk about the in-ring stuff. But, Britt Baker versus Thunder Rosa, that lights out match, I think did a lot to get some goodwill back on AEW's side. So I think they'll be okay as long as they don't do too many more treacherous botches like that. But it was good to hear JR confirm that it looked good and it was what it was supposed to be. And it just didn't go off when the time was right. You can check out Red Ass JR every single Thursday, grilling up some stories with Conrad Thompson, talking about the good old days in professional wrestling. And they don't just do the old stuff either, JR does talk about new stuff, as we just talked about with the Revolution pay-per-view and the explosions. JR will talk about some shit, and he doesn't hold back, and he's red-assed. Sassafras. Eric Bischoff was on Insight with Chris Van Vliet this week. It's always interesting hearing the host become the hostee, or the guest, I guess, if you want to use proper language. Fucking fuck. And he talks about just exactly how close he was to buying WCW, to owning it. You've heard the rumors. You've heard it. How close was he exactly? Find out right here.
And like how close, everyone talks about how close you were to owning WCW, but how close were you really?
Well, there was a letter of intent that outlined the exact terms of a deal that, had been negotiated between Fusion Media, the group I was with, and Turner Broadcasting. Everybody had signed off on it. Due diligence had been done. Probably close to $1 million worth of legal fees had been expended. We had assurances from all of the top executives at Turner Broadcasting the deal was going to move forward. Hell, there was a conference call. There was a Wall Street conference call announcing the deal publicly based on the letter of intent. I took my kids, who were still young at the time. I realized that once the deal was closed, that I probably wouldn't see a vacation again for the next 5 years. So I literally thinking, okay, this deal's going to close in the next month or two. I've got a little time on my hands. I'm going to take my kids on vacation. And I did. Took them to Hawaii. Took them, and they each got to bring a friend, and we all went to Hawaii thinking, okay, as soon as the plane lands, when we get back, I got about 2 days, and off I go.
Yeah.
And while I was in Hawaii, I got the phone call saying the deal was dead.
Wow.
Yeah, that was shitty.
Yeah, this was a done deal. This was publicly announced. This was settled on. Everybody within was preparing to go this course. This is what was going to happen. This was absolutely the course of action. And then somehow, some way it fell through because the AOL execs didn't want it on TV. And without TV, what the fuck good is the deal? At that point, you're buying the ring and the fucking banners and the trademarks and the library, which is worth a lot. But what's that worth to an Eric Bischoff without TV? What's that worth to Fusion? If they don't have a TV, are they now going to take this product that they spent money on, that kind of money on, that brand, and then go try to shop it around? Hey, this was dying and being kicked off of TNT. Would you like to put it on TV? I mean, I'm sure they could have found something somewhere. I mean, look at TNA. They've had 35 different TV channels already, and they're still going somewhere along the way. So I'm sure Fusion would have found a home for the new WCW. Eric Bischoff would have found a new home, of course. I assume so. He's a TV savvy man. But when TNT pulled the plug on WCW, and that's AOL, Time Warner pulled the plug on WCW, that was it. It was no longer worth buying. There was nothing to buy there. There was nothing Eric Bischoff realistically could have done with what he was buying without the TV time. He was making the deal under the assumption, under the verbal agreement, that they would continue to have the TV time on TNT. That was part of the agreement. But when the decision was made that we just don't want wrestling here anymore, that was it. That was done. Bischoff was cut off, and fucking Vince swooped in like a fucking scavenger and just picked up all the scraps. And when I was a kid, when that happened, I remember very clearly because I was in it, up to my fucking neck with the Monday Night Wars. I was in it. I was a channel flipper. I was watching this and then changing the channel of that. The flashback button on the remote, pa, 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 pa. If you didn't have my attention, I was changing the fucking channel. Not Vince Russo have my attention, like, oh, there's an old lady on a forklift, let me watch that. Not that kind of attention. Well, I'm talking NWO at its peak. And then you got the fucking rise of DX and Stone Cold and the Hart Foundation and later the corporate ministry. And man, just what an era to be a fan of professional wrestling. And I was a channel flipper. So when it was announced that WWF had bought WCW, this was a shock, a huge shock. I was like, what the fuck? I didn't even believe it. And I watched that night, and the simulcast happened. And it's wrestling history. You've seen it 100 bajillion times. You don't need to hear me explain it. But how many of you lived through it? I'm sure I have a lot of older listeners, but there's probably some younger ones too that have just heard about it through the network and the stories and the DVDs and whatever else, What What a time to live in. Eric Bischoff was that close. It was so close. It was everything but like the contract was probably being printed up. They had more than a handshake deal, I believe. You know, this was gonna happen. This deal was almost sealed. And in the fucking bottom of the 9th inning, in the bottom of does baseball even have overtime? In the bottom of the 10th inning? Yeah, they do. They can go up to multiple innings, I think. I don't know. Don't judge me on sports, okay? I'm a wrestling guy. So baseball, in the bottom of the 10th fucking inning, Vince McMahon swoops in and just steals the fucking WCW scraps. Because there's no TV to put it on. What's the point of it? Well, it's got plenty of use to Vince, who was planning a network at the time. All the way back then, he had WWE 24/7. They always, before they knew it was going to be a streaming thing, they wanted a channel that played wrestling 24/7 and had all the back catalog shit. So they had this planned for years, even well before Netflix and all of that. So they had a reason for that catalog, and they made out like a bandit. He also talks about how AEW and NXT is not really quite the Wednesday Night War that everybody says it is, and all kinds of other little goodies. Again, Chris Van Vliet just has a way of pulling out the best interview out of people. And Eric's easy to get talking anyway, and he can ramble on and on and on. But I think Chris asked a lot of really good questions, a lot of stuff you don't really hear in every conversation that you get with Eric that you may not have heard before, or you only heard a little bit of, and here's more explanation on it, more backstory, more of a broader explanation. But always good shit for the Insight podcast. Can't say enough good things about it. And your man, Eazy-E. I mean, Eric Bischoff. Gotta love him, right? Go check this out. Eric Bischoff continued to make the podcast rounds this week on After the Bell with Corey Graves and Vic Joseph. And during the interview, Eric was caught off guard with a big surprise by Corey Graves. Check this out.
But yeah, I want to echo all of Vic's sentiments. But because this was originally my show, I get to do you one better. Because Eric, after all these years and contributions you have made to the sports entertainment industry,
it is our honor and privilege to inform you, Eric, that you will be joining the 2021 class of the WWE Hall of Fame. Congratulations.
Congratulations, Eric.
Wow. Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't know quite what to say. Wow. It's awesome.
It's a much-deserved honor. I'd say it's well overdue. We'll give you a minute to process it.
Yeah. It'll take more than a few minutes, guys. Just, wow. That's all I got, man. For a guy that can never shut the hell up on my own podcast, I don't have anything to say. I'm just speechless. Wow. This is going to take a minute.
That's right, folks. Eric Bischoff is finally going into the WWE Hall of Fame. Look, we all know that the WWE Hall of Fame's a fucking gimmick, right? I mean, it's just there for show, but to a certain extent, it is an honor. And though everybody eventually will end up in there because they do fucking 12 people per year, it's still an honor. Your name is still etched in history. Your name is in the same list, in the same conversation with some of the greatest, with all of the greatest names of all time. Eric Bischoff, this is well past due. Eric has had more than a worthy Hall of Fame career. I know some of you don't like Eric Bischoff, and I know some of you will scoff at the Hoff being a deserving Hall of Famer, but going into the Hoff. Scoff at the Hoff going into the Hoff. Okay, that was lame. But let's look at this here now. Eric Bischoff, AWA announcer, WCW announcer, WCW authority figure, manager, whatever you want to say. And those are just on-air characters. WWE general manager, on-air characters? How about running WWE SmackDown for like a month before he was fired? How about running WCW, turning it from a failing loss after loss after loss, year after year after year, turning it around, making it a profitable company, making it a ratings juggernaut, overtaking Vince McMahon for well over a year, almost a year and a half, more than a year and a half. Eric Bischoff invented live pro wrestling. WWE was taped almost all of the time, with the exception of maybe like a Saturday night's main event here and there. WCW Nitro went live every single Monday. Week after week after week, we were live on TV. Eric Bischoff brought a sense of reality to live TV. He made this was an era when characters in wrestling were characters. There were garbage men and fucking hockey players and fucking clowns and shit. And this man made it real. He added an air of realism to professional wrestling. He got Hall and Nash. He called them Scott Hall and Kevin Nash. He didn't call them Diesel and Razor Ramon, though he couldn't call them that. He could have made up some other stupid name for them, right? But he went with real names. He went with real personalities. He went with a more reality-based, edgier, made for the 18 to 49 age demographic. Eric Bischoff was a legend. The things that he did have affected the pro wrestling industry to this very day. You can see his fingerprints all over professional wrestling. If it weren't for Eric Bischoff, who knows what wrestling would look like today? But I could almost guarantee it wouldn't look like it does now. Eric Bischoff was a fundamental, groundbreaking, game-changing, legendary influence on professional wrestling. Period. I don't give a shit what you want to say about him. You think he ruined the company, blah, 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 blah. You're full of shit. You watch too much internet videos. Eric Bischoff changed professional wrestling in ways that most people can't say that they did. Eric Bischoff is one of the most influential people in professional wrestling history. Period. End of story. We're not talking wrestlers. If you take wrestlers out of the equation, other than Vince McMahon, who's more influential than Eric Bischoff? Who? It's not Vern Gagne. Vern Gagne trained tons of legendary wrestlers. So his influence had echoes all through the 80s and the 90s. Some of the top stars. But did he change the wrestling business? I would say he didn't. Did Cowboy Bill Watts change the wrestling business? Not particularly. No, he didn't. Again, he brought lots of big stars into the business, but there's nothing that he did to professional wrestling that fundamentally changed it forever the way that Eric Bischoff did. Jim Crockett. You could add his name to that list, but I would even venture to say that Eric Bischoff was more influential than a Jim Crockett at the time, right? Crockett started the competition. Crockett ran pay-per-views head-to-head with WWE, or rather, WWE ran their pay-per-views head-to-head with Crockett. But Crockett competed. Crockett was Eric Bischoff in the 80s. He tried, but I would say if you look at the way professional wrestling looks to this day, how it's run, how a live Monday night presentation goes, Eric Bischoff's fingerprints are all over it. He's a legend. Well, not only that, he created the NWO. And you could say, oh yeah, he stole it from Japan. Kind of. He stole a little bit of a faction from Japan, but really, like the NWO with the edge that they had and the realism that it had, they just took professional wrestling to the next level. And it took a Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock at the same time with a supporting cast of Mick Foley and The Undertaker and Kurt Angle and Benoit and Eddie Guerrero and all these fucking people. DX, Shawn Michaels, Triple H, New Age Outlaws, X-Pac. It took a fucking army to turn the tides away from WCW success back to WWE. Eric Bischoff absolutely belongs in the Hall of Fame. He absolutely should have been in there a long time ago. I am fucking ecstatic to see that he got in. And to hear his reaction live like that. We don't normally get that. We get the big announcement, oh, this person's going to be in the Hall of Fame. We don't get to see it actually be told. I was caught off guard by this. It wasn't in the comments, and I listened to it the same day that it came out, so it wasn't really like all over YouTube and shit. I was surprised, and then all of a sudden, like, Eric gets emotional. You heard it. Eric gets a little choked up. And I got a little choked up listening to it because it was like he really deserves it. He's finally getting recognized. He's a man who's been very controversial in this business, gets a lot of negativity, but I feel like he's starting to get and has been kind of getting that respect and that love and appreciation that I feel like he's always deserved. So much props to Eric Bischoff. Congrats, my man. I respect you, and I'm glad to see that you're finally going into the Hall of Fame. You can check out After the Bell every single Thursday with Corey Graves and Vic Joseph and various WWE and peripherally related WWE talents. Fallout from the Fuego del Sol versus QT Marshall epic battle took place this week on Sammy's vlog. Check this out.
Well. I mean, fair and square.
Oh, now you want to come do that, huh? Congratulations, you're trending worldwide, huh? Yeah, no, it was only you, though. Fucking takes two to tango in that ring, right? Better man won. You'll get yours. Good shit, man.
I lost to QT.
Did you hit him with the tornado DDT?
You're damn right I hit him with the tornado.
Isn't that all that matters?
I wanted to win.
Hasn't he been a sack of shit to you?
You're right about that.
Okay, here's the deal. You don't need this. This is no good. You can do this on your own. I believe in you, man. You are better than QT. Don't ever let that sack of shit do that to you again. Hit him with 2 tornado DDTs if you got to. Okay? You gotta get pumped up, my brother. Yeah. We believe in you, man, and you know what? Gosh darn it, you're good enough. And I love you very much. Okay? You've got this.
It's fucking Dustin Rhodes. Fuck yeah, I got this.
Look, when you get the kiss on the forehead from Dustin Rhodes, that's it. You're a made man. What else is there to live for after that? You have been blessed with greatness, okay? One of the greatest of all time from the seeds of the loin of one of the other greatest of all times, Bebe, have kissed you on the forehead. Where do you go from there? Why do you even need the contract? You can die a happy man. Fuck the contract. You have lived a good life. Lots of great shit on Sammy's vlog this week, including additional fallout from Sammy being back in AEW and all the other fun shenanigans that go along with it. Boy bands, Cody Rhodes being a douchebag. You even get a cameo from -1. And if you thought Cody Rhodes was a douchebag on Sammy's vlog, wait till you check out -1. I mean, this kid is a brat. We had the Dark Order's Stu Grayson and Evil Uno on the AEW Unrestricted podcast this week, talking all about the Dark Order and Brody Lee and being the elite and all that good shit that you want to hear about from the Dark Order. But in this particular clip, they talk about that little stinking brat punk kid -1. That's right, I said it. He's a little brat. Listen to this.
Brody Lee Jr., who is -1.
Yeah.
Correct. Who basically looks like a tiny 10.
Yep.
And
likely someday will just be 1.
Right.
At some point.
And ultimately... And ultimately, he's sort of become the new de facto leader of the Dark Order.
It's because we just can't say no to him, to be honest.
No one can.
He's the most terrifying member of our unit.
Yes.
Oh my.
Yes, exactly.
People don't realize it, but every time he's at Dynamite, I have welts all over my body because he beats me constantly.
Yes, I know. And one thing that I really hate is that people think we're like using him or abusing negative.
No, he's having the time of his life.
We don't have a choice.
Absolutely not.
That's right. I mean, his whole life is about waiting to finally show up to Dynamite.
I know that.
Beat the living piss out of us.
Right.
Book the whole show.
Right.
And then go home.
Right.
That's what he does.
There was actually, like, maybe peeling behind the curtain a little too much. So we always have a bunch of darks after Dynamite. And I remember, like, somebody coming back and saying, okay, we got to move all the Dark Order matches up because Brody Lee Jr. is tired and he wants to go home. And we're like, he's literally booking the show.
He's got school in the morning.
Right. And then everyone's just like, well, we can't say no. Like, he's Brody Lee. Like,
He's wonderful.
He's the coolest kid.
I accept the beatings because he's that cool of a kid.
Yeah. Right. I wish I was that cool when I was 9.
Yeah.
Like,
and genuinely, for a 9-year-old, is smarter than most wrestlers in my area.
He gets wrestling.
He's very well.
When he tells how I'm going to cut a promo tonight, so I'm going to just say that so they'll have a reaction. I'll just feed off of it, and I'm like, what? You're 9 years old.
And he's
there are
he's
people
incredible.
in wrestling who don't cut as good of promos as this.
Yeah.
Like, this is insane. The other one, too, is like in his 45-minute Iron Man match with Marco.
Yes.
Once at an after party, he
gets released
he
one
did
day.
the whole like grab him by the arms rather than like pull his hair up, and I was like, oh, brother's a worker.
Oh yeah, he knows.
He
knows what he's doing.
When he wants to protect you, he will. When he doesn't, you're screwed.
Yes.
Right. He will make sure that the pad is pulled off the couch before he gives you the key.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, he's a good kid.
It's a great story. It really is. Really props to you guys for taking care of him because I know it was tough for all of us, but you guys in the Dark Order really took him under your wing and made him a part of it, and it was special. It was special for everybody.
It's special to us too. It's I'm more than happy to do it.
You got this little punk kid running around backstage terrorizing everybody. I said it earlier with the Sammy vlog. This kid is just a monster. It's been confirmed. Aubrey Edwards says he is. The Dark Order's scared to death of him. You see in all these videos like Sammy's vlog and shit earlier, the kid just runs around like a fucking bastard maniac and does whatever the hell he wants. Who's watching this brat? Now, I get we lost his father. The man lost his father. I get it. I understand. We need to be sensitive. We need to give him space. We need to do things to put smiles on his face. But to me, the kid's a fucking terrorist. I imagine some of these wrestlers are scared for their fucking lives backstage. This kid just walks around, calls people jobbers and fucking their enhancement talent and fucking slaps people in the face for no reason and he's bossy and all that shit. This kid runs the fucking show. Why? Why are we giving this kid fucking carte blanche to just run the backstage like a terrorist? Okay? I understand his father died. All due respect, right? Let the kid have fun. Spoil the kid. Give him happy memories. But to me, from all the stories, and maybe they're just working a little bit and hyping it up, but to me, it sounds like from everything I've seen and everything I've heard, which is a lot, this kid just gets to run wild, out of control. He's that bratty little kid when you're at like your friend's house or your cousins or whatever. You got nephews, you got little cousins, whatever the fuck. Everybody knows that little bratty ass kid that will talk shit to an adult and talk smack because he knows he's not going to get his ass kicked. He knows he can get away with it. And he just says stupid shit and slaps people and pushes people. And he's a little bully monster. That's what -1 is. He's a little bully monster and he needs to be controlled. He's not a cute kid. I don't care. He's a little snot-nosed punk-ass brat is what he is. Now, of course, I'm playing it up, guys. Come on. Don't bring your hate my way. He's a kid. He's a kid who just lost his father. I'm giving him that. All right? I get all of everything you're going to say, so fuck off with all of it. All I'm saying is by everything everybody else says and everything I see on every video as evidence from the Sammy's vlog covered earlier here, the kid's just a terrorist. Maybe that's his gimmick. Maybe they're playing that up for the camera. Maybe when the camera goes off, he's nice and friendly and sweet to everybody. But I feel like he sees the kid that just walks around, pushes kids up against walls, or pushes guys up against walls, punches them in the dick, calls them a pussy, pulls their hair, slaps their face, stomps on their foot, steals their candy, laughs in their face, makes fun of them in front of all the other guys to be cool. He's a bully. He's a punk kid, brat, bully, snot-nosed motherfucker. And I'm going to go to hell for saying all that and get lots of hate. Bring it on. You can check out AEW Unrestricted every single Thursday, day after Dynamite. It's right there. Oh, by the way, speaking of Dynamite, I know I don't talk about wrestling here, but my God, Britt Baker and fucking Thunder Rosa, clap, 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 clap. Fucking great. That's all I'm going to say. Moving on. Got a little taste of drama this week via the Twitterverse and YouTube and podcasts and all that other internet shit. It was Miro of AEW, formerly known as Rusev in WWE, with his little homie Kip Sabien and his beautiful bride Penelope Ford. And they were just going about living their life like nothing was going on until Jim Cornette had some not so nice things to say about them, and they fired back. They had the guts to go at the king of the shit talk in professional wrestling. They took shots back at Jim Cornette, threatening either violence or sexual assault. Depending on how you want to take the phrase, I will come on you. If somebody threatens to come on me, I don't know if they're pulling their wiener out or if they're just going to be swarming with fists. You never know. You never know. But in any event, they stepped at the king. Those three had the nerve to challenge Jim Cornette, who for my money is the most dangerous man verbally in professional wrestling today. Sharp as a tack, despite his rapid aging. Jim Cornette is a witty motherfucker. And if you go at a Jim Cornette, he will not hold back. He will tear your asshole apart. Verbally, possibly physically, if he gets anywhere near you with his baseball bat.
Apparently, we've buried the lead here because apparently the headline is that an AEW superstar has threatened me with either physical or sexual assault. The way it was worded, we're not actually sure. And it is all over my critique of their crummy amateurish outlaw wrestling. And they did this out in public, if you will. And of course, we're talking about the Bulgarian Bluto himself, Miro. We did one of our normal critiques of one of their attempts at a wrestling show, and I don't even know. It's been in the last week or two. I'm not sure exactly which show this was we were talking about. But he took exception, and so did his little friend Pip and their sidekick, Penelope Pitstop. He's been a joke. Everybody's laughed. He came to AEW to be his true self, and he's been a fucking preliminary joke. But in the WWE, he got over for a while, as I referred to in that tweet. He got over for a while, or in that statement I made in the review. He just didn't know how that they got him over because they pushed him like a monster. And apparently, as you mentioned, by the time his run was over with, he was getting kicked in the balls. This is a common theme with these people. All modern wrestling these days, like people to get kicked in the balls and their wife go kiss another guy. In this case, his real wife who I guess is Lana over there. She used to be Russian. Now she's not, but she's really married to this guy. And she was playing tonsil hockey with Bobby Lashley while he was laying there holding his fucking nuts in the ring in front of thousands of people. So apparently they thought he was a blithering fucking idiot once they got to know him. And then I looked back further and found out he had been in NXT or Florida, whatever their training program was at that point, for like 3 or 4 years before he got to the main roster, and they couldn't smarten him up to all this time. They couldn't smarten him up to the business, ended up making a fucking goof out of him. So he goes over here and takes this guy's money and gets to do his own shit where he makes a bigger goof out of himself. If I was a producer and I was casting a show or a movie and I needed to fill the part of a delinquent in a Dickens-era children's workhouse asking for some more gruel, I would probably hire Kip Sabien. But otherwise, I don't even know what to do with this guy. And if I did great material, nobody'd fucking care. But he and Penelope make a cute couple. If they ever need to cast Mark Miro and Sable as teenagers, if the fucking network does like one of those, you know, the Little Rascals type thing with the guys as kids, you know, maybe there you go. And I'm sure their careers will probably turn out the same way as Miro's and Sable's once that she fucking makes a move upwards again. But I never said the things I could have said, even though she actually had relations with Jelly Nutella. You remember that? So she should have an infectious disease specialist on speed dial. Didn't they do something with that on television? With her and Jelly and Pip, where she and Pip kicked old Jelly in the balls and then made out or fondled or something while Jelly laid there holding his little fucking winky.
This was fantastic to listen to. Cornette did a whole hour just about talking about this situation and explaining why he said what he said, and then going on to say a bajillion other things, as you heard. There's not a lot to say about this. I can't take one side or the other. I'm not going to say Cornette's right. I'm not going to say Miro and them are right. I'm going to say this is just entertaining shit. I'm going to point you in the direction of the Jim Cornette experience and the Jim Cornette drive-thru to get the full scoop here. This particular clip from Corny's drive-thru. Go check it out. Listen to the full thing. I had such a hard time even picking out a sample. That's why I don't have a lot to say about this, because it was just an hour's worth of greatness out of the mouth of Jim Cornette. And apparently, you know, Penelope, she's upset. She doesn't like to be referred to as a slut. Miro, he's angry because Penelope was referred to as a slut. And Kip, he's just whatever. Doesn't matter. Don't step at Jim Cornette for whatever you do. Just if you're gonna go there, you're gonna know that you're gonna get into some shit. You're in it. And Jim Cornette laid out the challenge. We can stop it here, but if you continue to keep going, I will make it my life's mission to ruin you. And I don't doubt him. I do not doubt Jim Cornette for 1 second, because he's crazy as fuck. Anyway, nothing I could say could do any of it justice. I'm just bringing it up to point you in the direction and tell you to go check that shit out. The drama on the internet, it's fantastic. The Not Big Show, Paul White, was on the Talk is Jericho podcast this week, talking all about the reason why he left WWE, and in particular, this specific conversation that he had with WWE, where they told him this to his face. Check this out.
So I guess you mentioned sitting on the bench for a long time. What was kind of the final straw for you to leave? Because it's hard to leave that environment, well, as you know.
The writing on the wall when I figured I couldn't change anything in WWE was about 5 years ago. I got a speech that I was told I would never main event a WrestleMania again. I would never main event a pay-per-view again. And I would only be used to get over NXT talent because, you know, they got to think about the future of the business.
You actually were told that?
I was told that to my face, yeah. Not by Vince, but by somebody in the organization that, you know, pretty high up.
A higher up powers that be is basically telling you. Are they telling you this matter of factly? Or are they telling you?
Yeah, pretty matter of fact. Like, you know, this is it, you know. because at the time, 5 years ago, there weren't any options. You know, so they felt, because I was very frustrated about positioning, and I felt a little bit handcuffed a little bit because I couldn't help like I wanted to help.
Right.
You know, and then it was like, you know, like, what's going on? You guys are not letting me contribute like I can contribute. You know, you're kind of handcuffing me a little bit. And so then I had that meeting and I was told why. You know, that was that.
You tell a guy to his face, a wrestler that has been with you for 20 plus years, you tell this man, you are never going to main event another fucking show again. Not a pay-per-view, not a WrestleMania. You are going to be a jobber to put over the young talent, and that's all you're going to do ever. Fuck you. Now, this was in Big Show's words, and we know Big Show can be kind of a whiny baby sometimes, so we're going to take this with a grain of salt. But if any form of that actually happened, then you got a guy who feels like he still has gas left in the tank, and the company's telling him, you know what, just retire. He kept getting that feeling, you know, they thought they were doing me a favor. They wanna put me out to the retirement home. How does that put yourself in those shoes? Those giant, massive, 20-some-inch shoes that the Big Show would wear? And try to understand what that feels like. Hey, man, your time is done. He doesn't feel like his time is done. Now, granted, every old timer goes through that. Very little are self-aware enough to be like, you know what? It's my time to hang up the boots. I got to get out of here. Or, you know what? I'm on the downswing. I'm just going to put a bunch of guys over until I can't go no more. And hopefully I can contribute to the next generation of stars. Not everybody has that self-awareness. So with a guy like a Christian, and a guy like a Big Show, and a guy like a Sting, are these guys not self-aware enough to know that their time is just over? Or are these guys being told by a company that just doesn't want to use them anymore because they never really wanted them or liked them to begin with, that they're just not needed anymore, and that they're old news, and that they're not going to be a main event talent anymore? Christian, you're fun to bring back in a Rumble. Fuck, we'll even let you come down to the Final Four. You looked great, but nobody wants to see you wrestle every week. That's ridiculous. Well, I would venture to say that we do want to see Christian wrestle every week. Whether he's the second coming of CM Punk and fucking Brock Lesnar and The Rock and all these big stars or not, he is still a talent that I want to see wrestle. If he's got gas left in the tank and he can still hang on the level that he used to be able to hang, and he can hang with the newer wrestlers, then I want to see that shit. Big Show, on the other hand, I can't say that I have any interest in seeing the Big Show. But if he feels he has enough left in the tank and I can see something, because now he's going to go out there and have a match that he wasn't told by Vince McMahon to go out and have. Let's see what kind of matches he can put together. Let's see what he looks like in an AEW ring. And if he's the boring old Big Show, then fuck him. I don't want to see him. He can sit behind a desk and talk the whole time like he wants to do. That one doesn't excite me. I have zero interest in Big Show. But when you're being told to your face that we don't see it in you anymore, what do you do? So I can't fault him for feeling this way, but it remains to be seen if what he's saying is true and that he does have more to give, or if WWE was right and he is a guy that just needs to kind of be benched and just brought in on special occasions to make other guys look good. We shall see. You can check out Talk is Jericho every single Wednesday and Friday. Just check the podcast app. It'll be right there. That's it. That's all we got for you today. Thanks for checking out the show. Don't forget to follow me, like me, subscribe on Twitter, whatever the fuck you do there. It's at Seth Grimes Media. You can find me on YouTube. I got the full podcast every single week, plus several clips if you just want to listen to some of the clips. Don't forget to like those. Don't forget to subscribe to those. Comment on them. All that good shit. I want to hear your thoughts. Let's talk about it. Been my pleasure. Thanks for spending this time with me. Have a great day. Peace, love, and pizza. I'm Seth Grimes, and this has been the Pro Wrestling Podcast.